Proof of stake isn't just a risk. It could be the biggest manipulation in the history of cryptocurrencies. Yes, you may have already been convinced that POS is a safe, modern, and environmentally friendly solution. They say it is the future of blockchains, replacing the outdated and electricity-hungry proof of work. While POS networks are positioned as a secure solution, there are serious risks behind it that have already affected millions of users. Imagine that you keep your money in a bank that is known for its reliability. You are sure that everything is under control, your funds are protected. But one day you find out that a small group of people, literally a few people, can not only block your account, but also cancel your transfers just because it is profitable for them. And the worst part is that you won't even know about it until it's too late. The examples of Ethereum, Tron, and Steem show that the concentration of power in POS networks is not a theory, but a proven fact. POS creates the illusion of decentralization. Everything is beautiful in words. Thousands of blockchain participants, thousands of validators, complete freedom. But in reality, power is concentrated in the hands of a few big players, exchanges, funds, and those who simply own large amounts of coins. In order to understand how we got to this point, let's look at why proof of stake is presented as the ideal solution. POS is often presented as a technology that solves all proof of work problems: energy costs, slow transactions, scaling difficulties. All this seems to be a thing of the past. But let's get to the bottom of it. Is POS really an ideal solution, or just a pretty wrapper that hides new threats? Let's start with the main argument of POS supporters: power consumption. Yes, proof of work networks like Bitcoin or the old version of Ethereum consume a huge amount of electricity. For example, mining Bitcoin annually requires as much energy as the entire country of Norway. That's a fact. POS promises to fix this problem. It doesn't need to waste electricity on solving complex math problems. Instead, the network selects validators, participants who freeze their tokens on the network, confirming their interest in its fair operation. Instead of expensive hardware, the validator only needs to rent a relatively inexpensive server that will keep the node running. In fact, all that is required is to invest coins in staking and start this server. The more coins, the higher the chance of being the one who will add a new block to the network and get rewarded for it. Is it economical? Yes. But is it safe? We are told that such a mechanism protects the network because in order to hack into it, an attacker would need to buy up a huge amount of coins. This would supposedly make the attack too expensive. There is an important nuance that is often missed. Doesn't this mean that those who already have a lot of coins gain far more power over the network? After all, the more tokens you have in your balance, the more control you have. Now think about it. Who today holds the most coins in popular POS networks, like Ethereum, Polygon, or Avalanche? The answer will probably not make you happy. POS is presented as a safe and modern technology. We are told it saves energy, speeds up transactions, and makes blockchains more accessible to ordinary users. But behind the pretty words about blockchain democracy, there is a problem that they prefer to keep quiet about. POS didn't rid cryptocurrencies of centralization, it just made it less obvious. How did this happen? Let's figure it out. POS is designed so that the more coins you invest in staking, the more often the network chooses you to create new blocks. Essentially, your earnings are directly proportional to your capital. Now imagine the situation. One network member has invested 10 coins, another has 10,000 coins. Who do you think has a better chance of controlling the network and accumulating even more assets? This principle creates a snowball effect. The big players get more rewards, which means even more coins for staking. Over time, their influence becomes so strong that they actually gain control of the network. Now, a concrete example. After Ethereum's move to POS, over 58% of the staking was under the control of just a few entities. What does this mean in practice? If these players decide to band together or get an order from regulators, they can block or even reject any transaction that seems suspicious to them. And this is not a hypothesis. It's already happened. After the sanctions against Tornado Cash, many major validators simply stopped validating transactions related to the service. Despite statements about decentralization, in practice we see concentration of power in a few large players. This creates risks for all participants in the network. Ethereum finds itself in a unique position where even its competitors, the so-called Ethereum killers, have so far failed to push it out from the market. Why did this happen? I've explained it in detail in another video. If you're interested, be sure to watch it. And now it's time to think about it. While mining pools compete with each other in Bitcoin, POS networks seem to follow a different scenario. Exchanges like Binance, Coinbase, and Kraken are slowly turning into something that looks a lot like banks. They concentrate huge amounts in their staking pools, take commissions for your own cryptocurrency, and the most dangerous part, gain real control over the network. Those who promoted POS as an alternative to the traditional financial system have essentially created its digital counterpart, with the same dependence on intermediaries and big players who can dictate the rules. Decentralization? Not quite. Concentrating such large assets in the hands of a few players threatens the key principle of decentralization. In fact, the network becomes vulnerable to collusion or regulatory pressure. This is not a theory. Such scenarios have already been realized, and the consequences were tangible. Let's look at real cases where POS networks have gone from being a neutral technology to a tool of control. Let's start with the most high-profile case, Ethereum 2.0. After switching to POS, the network faced unprecedented pressure from regulators. It all started when the U.S. Treasury Department imposed sanctions against Tornado Cash, a popular service for anonymous transfers. Tornado Cash was not a criminal platform, but its anonymity was often used by hackers to launder funds. What did Ethereum's biggest validators do? Instead of remaining neutral, they simply started blocking transactions that were linked to Tornado Cash. Companies like Coinbase, Kraken, and a number of other major players started filtering transfers for fear of claims from authorities. Now imagine you accidentally transferred your money through Tornado Cash or received funds that went through the service. Your assets could be blocked. No court, no warning, simply because the big players decided it was safer for themselves. But this is not the only case. Let's take, for example, the Tron network, which operates on the delegated proof of stake, DPoS, mechanism. Here, voting for those who confirm transactions depends on who has more coins. And this is what happened. Tron's founder, Justin Sun, and his related entities gained control of the majority of voting nodes. In fact, this allowed him to influence the decisions of the entire network. As a result, Tron became a system where one person could dictate the rules of the game for millions of users. But perhaps an even more obvious example occurred in the Steem network. In 2020, when the same Justin Sun acquired the Poloniex exchange, he automatically became the owner of a large share of Steem tokens. With these, Sun gained control over voting on the network and began promoting his people as validators. What happened next? He simply blocked the accounts of those who didn't support his policies. In response, the Steem community was forced to create a new blockchain, Hive, where most of the active users moved to. And here's the main question. If such cases have already happened, how protected are your assets in POS networks today? POS networks were promised freedom, security, and decentralization. In practice, we see examples of a small group of players taking control of entire blockchains. POS is promoted as a step towards greater freedom, but in reality, it may turn out to be a tool for new monopolies. Are you willing to trust your money to a system that has already proven to play against you? And now the logical question arises. Are there ways to protect yourself from such risks? Not all blockchains are equally vulnerable to manipulation. Yes, the concentration of power in the hands of big players is a serious threat, especially for proof-of-stake networks. But there are alternatives that address these risks at the level of the technology itself. One such example is Solana, which works not on POS, but on a unique proof-of-history, POH, mechanism. POH is an algorithm that captures a sequence of events on the blockchain using a cryptographically validated timeline. This approach allows Solana to achieve high transaction speeds while avoiding the problems of large players over-concentrating power. If you plan to make money with Solana, I recommend looking into the Robobo Validator. It's a reliable validator that allows you to safely participate in staking without middlemen and centralization. Instead of entrusting your assets to large exchanges, you are staking through an independent validator while maintaining full control of your funds. The link to the Robobo Validator is in the description. If you want not just to invest in POS, but to protect your assets from the risks of monopolization and manipulation, it is important to understand what exactly you should pay attention to. Here are 3 criteria that really work. The first is staking distribution. POS networks are organized in such a way that the more coins a validator has, the more power it has. This is why secure networks try to limit the influence of the big players. How to check this out? Go to the Blockchain Observer. For example, for Ethereum, it's Etherscan. For Cosmos, it's Minscan. For Polkadot, it's polkadot.js. There you will see a list of all validators and their share in the total staking. Now, an important point. If one validator controls more than 20 to 30% of all funds in the network, this is an alarming signal. And if several large players collectively hold more than half of the entire system, this is no longer decentralization, but a direct threat to your assets. Look at the Cosmos, Atom network. There are more than 180 independent validators, and the maximum share of a single participant rarely exceeds 5%. This is one of the best examples of a truly distributed network. Now compare that to Ethereum, where the Lido pool alone controls about 27%, with another 18% concentrated on Coinbase, Binance, and Kraken exchanges. If these players decide to merge or simply make concessions to regulators, they will be able to dictate the terms of the entire network. The second criteria is the system of incentives for validators. Reliable projects consciously create mechanisms that limit excessive amplification of large stakers and encourage equal distribution of assets. For example, the Cardano ADA network has a mechanism that reduces returns for large pools. When a pool reaches a certain limit on the number of coins, its rewards start to decrease. This motivates users to distribute funds to smaller pools, rather than putting everything into one large pool. Polkadot DOT works on the same principle. The nominated proof-of-stake NPOS system is implemented here, which incentivizes delegates to support less popular validators. As a result, the network remains stable, and the influence of large players is limited. And the third step is diversification. It's never a good idea to keep all your assets in one network, even if it seems reliable. Split your investments between different POS projects with different architectures. For example, you can combine Cardano, Cosmos, and Polkadot. They have different validator selection principles, which reduces the risk that problems in one network will bring down all your assets. Also, try to spread your funds between different validators. Even within the same network, it is better to choose multiple operators with different levels of influence. POS can be a profitable and safe tool if you approach the choice of the project consciously. Don't believe promises of guaranteed decentralization. Check the numbers, study the network architecture, and never put all eggs in one basket. POS is not a guarantee of security, but a technology with serious risks that are important to be aware of. But if you understand how POS networks work, know how to choose the right projects, and allocate assets wisely, you can significantly reduce these threats and keep control of your funds. Now, I'd like to know your opinion. What do you think about POS networks? Do you see them as promising, or do you think that centralization will sooner or later lead to serious problems? Write in the comments. Your opinion is important, and maybe it will suggest a topic for the next video. And if this analysis was useful for you, please support the video with a like and subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss new releases. In the next video, I will tell you how big companies are already using blockchain in practice, examples that may surprise even skeptics.